think I might just begin. Everyone, we might begin our next session just so we can keep moving along and get to lunch on time. Hi everyone, my name's Jackie Shelton. I'm one of the curators here at the Trobe Art Institute. I want to start this panel by acknowledging again that we're all gathering here on unceded Dja Dja Wurrung land as part of the Eastern Kulin Nations, and I want to acknowledge that their sovereignty has never been ceded. The land was stolen from them. So today I'm joined by Jen Thornton, Annie Brigdale, Noriko Nakamura, and Adam John Cullen. Jen is an artist and an art therapist living here in Bendigo and was also one of our recent studio artists here at the Trobe Art Institute, so we'll be able to hear a little bit of that. Annie is a Yorta Yorta woman living on Dja Dja Wurrung country, and she also works with schools and young people in the Bendigo Art Galleries as the Bendigo Art Galleries First Nations Learning Officer. Noriko is also an artist and educator and uses stone carving and organic elements to make installations that draw on ideas of animism and ritualistic practices. Some of you might remember Noriko's work from our exhibition about a year ago, Maternal Inheritances. It was curated by Amelia. Noriko had some beautiful carved works in that. And then we also have Adam John Cullen, an artist who predominantly works with sculpture. His practice stems from personal narrative, with many of his works referencing places, people, and events. So that's our panel today. We're going to be talking about the experience of living and working as an artist in regional Victoria and how you can sustain your work and how you can sustain a studio practice, which in many ways is one of the most difficult things of being an artist. So to just get us rolling, I want to ask each of you to describe your relationship to the studio. Do you have a studio? Do you get to go there often? Is it at home? Is it somewhere away from home? Like whatever you feel is the best way to capture your studio or non-studio practice. Maybe Jen, should we start with you as our recent studio artist?
Yeah, sure. Is this working fine? So I currently do not have a studio. I have a writing desk set up in my bedroom, which is carpeted, and I've been painting with oils. And I'd also, and we're renting. It's a very small piece though, and I am being very careful. I have a garage which I could use, but it's a bit cold at the moment, and it's also pretty dusty, so that's why I'm in the bedroom at the moment, which has its benefits. It's very close. I've been leaving everything just set up, ready to go, so it's like a constant reminder as well when I walk past the writing desk. Oh, that's there. Oh, I could probably get to that. And then earlier this year, and end of last year, I was lucky enough to get the residency here. So I had that for, I think it was over 3 months, so a nice big space. And I made some large sculptural work in that. So I planned on doing some smaller stuff, and then because I had the space, it just grew. So that's what I'm doing, very recently.
And how often do you find, I guess you're in your studio regularly because it's in your bedroom. I relate. Same situation. But how often do you find you can make time to go to your desk? Is it daily or once a week, or do you kind of structure it, or just whenever you have time?
I don't structure it. It's whenever I've got time. And I might sit down for 3 hours. I might sit down for 30 minutes. It just depends. It might be like I might work on it one day and then the next day, or I might leave it for a week or two. It just depends.
Yeah. Thank you. How about you, Annie?
Yes, you can.
So my name's Annie, and just before I start, I'd like to acknowledge their beautiful Jara country and acknowledge my beautiful elders in the room, and any Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people watching or in the room. I have a shed. We have a big, beautiful shed that's mostly my husband's, but I do have a space in there. But to be honest, I end up working on the kitchen table because I'm a mum. and I work, and the shed's cold, and it is great to get out there. When I get out there, I'm kind of like, why do I not come out here more often? But I've got littlies, or they're growing, so I find I'm quite often working. But I think as they will get older, I'll move back out to that space more and hopefully have something a bit more suitable. But I kind of find that my studio space spreads into the house quite a bit. Our house is a bit messy.
Yeah. Do you find, because I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, how different periods of your life really shape what you can do and where your studio might be, and whether you can like be there for giant chunks or if you're on the kitchen table for shorter periods. Do you find juggling studio with childcaring, with work, has changed the kind of work you're making, like the scale?
Yes, good and bad and back and forward. Like having children makes it really hard to get to your work, but having children helps me make my work. So, you know, there are periods where I'm more active. I've been lucky to be involved in some really great programs where I was able to, travel to Melbourne and stay in Melbourne with Career Heritage Trust. And that was pretty amazing last year, Black Design, where I was able to focus on my art, and that was amazing. And as a mum, to be able to take, a little bit of time away to do that is just, I actually can't explain how important that was for me. And then there's other times, like just recently, I haven't been able to make a lot, but it's always kind of, and working with children too, like working with young people feeds my creativity and my artistic practice. I learn so much from them. I learn more from them than they learn from me. So yeah, there's no kind of straight line. There's no structure to it. It's just, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I can also see you nodding, Noriko, and I saw an amazing work by you maybe last year at Composite that I feel like was directly kind of thinking about yourself as a mother and an artist, but also knowing that you also work with children as well. So could you perhaps speak to your own relationship to the studio and like all these other aspects of life that fold into it?
So I have a 6 years old daughter. Hello. Yeah, I have a 6 years old daughter. So beforehand, I like to have a studio outside of home. So I used to rent a studio. But since I had my daughter, I started having a studio in my shed and a study because I couldn't afford even half an hour traveling to the studio. Even if I had half an hour, I just want to hit hard. So like I have a stone carving studio in a shed, and also I started doing like a drawing and like a video since I have my daughter. So when like my daughter was like daycare, now she's at school, so I have like 6 hours. I can go to my shed studio to stone carving all day. But when I had a shorter time, I just do drawing or video that I can do like even 1 hour, like squeezing. So even like relationship to the studio or change, but also I kind of change the practice to kind of juggle with a child, having a child.
Yeah, it's like the time pressure as well as the space pressure. Like it's so different what you make when you've got a studio you spend half an hour traveling to, so you're there for a long time, versus like fitting in an hour in your day. And how about you, Adam? What's your relationship to the studio?
I also have a shed that I work out of. And maybe that's like the benefit of living regionally as well is more space. Like, as I was in Melbourne the last 20 years, renting studios or doing studio programs or something, and that difference between going and like we're talking about, like going and spending time in the studio is really great, but then being at home, having a studio there, which in a space I couldn't afford to have in Melbourne, or that maybe is like a less dedicated time, or I get distracted easier and start like painting the house or like gardening or something. But then, so I feel like that's sort of gone against my practice a little bit. But then you can, you know, like people were saying, like tie it into your practice. So like the garden has become sort of a focus of my practice, or making, because I make sculptural work usually within a domestic setting, or work that references a domestic setting that's just sort of moved to the garden, which is just something I didn't have before. So it has sort of, yeah, living regionally has developed my practice in a way that it wouldn't have otherwise. And that's when, yeah, that's what I'm doing at the studio at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Because I think that's a really good point where it's like not only about the space, but also the place of it. Like there's, like it's at home, but also you're kind of engaging with the land here in different ways. And I don't, yeah, I guess, Adam, I know that you were in Melbourne for a while, but I don't know enough about everyone else to know, I guess, exactly your history with like, have you been in Bendigo your whole life? Have you been like elsewhere regionally? But maybe each of you could speak, like picking up on that point Adam made, to your relationship to the studio that might feel specific to a regional experience. And it might not feel specific to you if it's like, well, that's just how I work. But yeah, maybe Noriko, do you want to jump in first?
About the regional experience.
Oh, I suppose, like, do you find, I'm not sure if you've always lived regionally or if you used to not, but do you find living regionally has impacted your practice and how you make in a way that is different to people you see in cities?
So since I moved to Castleman just before the COVID hit, so like the first few years we were in lockdown, and because I didn't have, that time I also didn't have my studio at home and to do the stone carving, so that's also I started doing video drawing. So then like during the lockdown I went to, I did filming, walking outside, walking the bushland of the Castlemaine and like filming the clique. So kind of that footage was in the video that you saw at the composite. So that's, yeah, definitely changed like how I see the, changed my practice, and also like how I see the nature, because my practice is quite connected to the nature and natural material. So I kind of actually like to be inside the nature and it's constantly feeding into it.
And how about you, Annie? Have you always been in Bendigo?
No, I haven't. I moved to Bendigo probably about 15 years ago, so I feel like I'm kind of almost getting to be a local. I don't know. But I grew up in this city, so I grew up in Melbourne. And to be honest, I kind of wasn't making as a young person. I didn't go and study straight out of school. I started making because I was in a really tough place as a person, out of school and really struggling, and needed to find something to really help myself connect. And so I started my art practice for that and for my mental health. And so when I think back to that initial time of beginning making again from kind of, you know, you make when, I mean, I was always making when I was young, but I stopped. I was in an apartment, and, you know, so it was a very different situation to being out, you know, being able to get out on country or being able to be out in nature. And yeah, so I don't know that necessarily answers that question, but I would say where I am living and the space that I'm in and is very influential to how I do my storytelling, which is through my art. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jen, how about you? Do you find place has a kind of impact on what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in New Zealand and I've always lived rurally. Now I live regionally, but luckily enough, right near the bush. So I can go for a long bush walk whenever I feel like I want to get out and about. And I use the environment a lot in my work. So it might be through video, it might be through collecting things to use. photographs, yeah, in all sorts of ways. Yeah, so I'd say that's a really, really important part of my practice is the environment that I'm in and grew up in.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I feel we kind of have like, as much as you can get in such a short period of time, like this like interesting sense of like how you're each working in different ways. But I suppose to come to the title of this panel, how do you sustain your practice? So kind of thinking about how difficult it is as artists to be artists, you know, how do you fund your practice? Do you sell your work? Do you apply for grants? Is it through teaching? Is it through other work that you do outside of your practice? Is it through residencies? I'd love to hear from each of you about kind of how you structure your life so that you can keep making. Maybe Adam first.
Yeah, look, financially, the practice probably isn't ideal. But I also work as a installation technician in a bunch of different regional galleries, and in Melbourne as well, which supports me financially to be able to continue to be an artist, which I'm really lucky to do because it's connected to the gallery world. Know a lot of the artists that I'm installing, and I am working with people in a similar field, just in a different role. So it's quite a fortunate position to be in. But a lot of people are in education, which is similar, which would be great. But I don't know. I find for me I work at about 6 or 7 different galleries, institutions, just constantly being around other work and seeing it and installing it and figuring out how people made it actually really benefits my practice. So yeah, that's just the financial aspect as to how I can exist and continue to make work. But yeah, there's probably like 10-20% would be selling work or grants, but they're not guarantees. Like if you get one of those, that's great. But for every application I do, maybe like 1 in every 10 or something like that I might get. That's not.
Like
that's just a rough
or
bet.
A sales, a bonus.
Yeah. That's like oh, now I can afford that thing I've been wanting. Yeah. Whereas like the installation work is like what holds up that. Yeah.
Do you find it's hard to balance your time between the install work, which can also like be long hours and be like quite physical like work? Do you find that's hard to balance that in studio?
Well, it's quite good being around as a contractor or a casual, because if I do have a show coming up, I can just say I'm not available. So that's a great bonus of not having to like get leave approved or anything like that. It's like on my terms. But it is hard, because it is unsustainable. Like it's not unsustainable. It's insecure work as well. So some show can be cancelled, or a touring show doesn't happen, or something like that, and you just don't have any work. So you kind of need to keep saying yes to everything, and then you end up overworking. It's like. Yeah, it is a tricky balance, but I think I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where when I do it, it does relate to, or I can learn from my work to then put that into my practice, which is a great position to be in, I think.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. How about you, Noriko? How do you sustain your practice?
I juggle so many things to sustain or survive with my practice, and I kind of roughly break my kind of income like in a three ways. So like I have like artwork sale and like artist fees. I get paid by exhibiting my shows at like galleries or museums, and then also I do teaching or workshops and educational program or artist talk. That's another income. And then third one, I used to work as an educator at after-school program, but now I work at teacher's aide at my daughter's school. So that also can cut to save my time to drop off and pick up and go to work. So I always like to aim the kind of some one other jobs that kind of continuing, like not so I'm not gambling for hoping to get sales. Some things I have just one job can kind of promise me income. Also I get a point from my daughter for like visiting her at like recess and lunch break. And also, so right now, since I moved to Castlemaine, I used to also teach at like BC Victorian College Bar and Melbourne University, but then they had budget cut and stuff, and I'm not teaching anymore. So I started on business of like doing art classes for kids, but I go to their houses. So they can organize like a play date or something and then I go there and bring all the material and tables and drop sheet and set up the little class for them. So that's also kind of try to be flexible, have an income, meeting my like family time and other kind of exhibition time. So something I have to have as a business that flexible to meet.
I think it's a really, like when I heard what you were doing with that, I think it's really clever and interesting, but also something that like I kind of want to hear more from you, but also because I feel it's something that's so relevant to everyone in the room. And it's like we often think about in public programs here how we can kind of engage kids in the community to be doing hands-on kind of workshop activities that they might not have access to at school, and that's kind of what you're doing, but also visiting their houses. So could you talk a bit about the kind of workshops or materials you might use, and maybe do you often do it with just 2 kids, or is there 10 kids, or how it looks?
Yeah. So I do, because my main practice is limestone carving, so I've been doing limestone carving workshop even for the visiting house one, and I did with 4 kids, and even including grade 1 girl to grade 4 boys, and they work so well, and they just go into straight, because stone carving they don't often experience, and also a lot of boys who has too much energy really into it, because they're just allowed to hit the thing, and that's encouraged. So it's and then they really focus. So and I just have to. I watch them just for the safety, but it kind of makes them to play with the flea, and if there's something risky, I'll just stop. But also I kind of try to make things together. And I did a dogu figure making workshop for primary school kids in Melbourne. It's more 25 kids, but we have but it's organized by Monash University. So I do kind of often have a large group one for schools, and so I have artist talk and talk about my practice, but also my practice is inspired by Japanese Shinto animism. So I talk about Japanese culture and also talk about Ghibli movies, and I found a Pokemon reference. So kind of try to bring some reference that kids are interested in. Then they'll be like, oh yeah, that's yeah. Then I change the vocabulary I use depending on their age level. So if it's a high school student, I can use almost a university level kind of art, kind of language. But for kids, just more open and loose, and also ask them more questions rather than me talking.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And Annie, how do you sustain your practice and make it possible to keep making?
I have a day job. So I work in education at the gallery, in First Nations education at the gallery. And so I have, and have had other jobs prior to that. I find having something is better for me, because then I'm not freaking out about where the money's coming from, and that just consumes me and I can't make. But I also do arts, put my work into exhibitions and some art sales, and during COVID I was doing a little bit of online education with young people, that wasn't really for making money as much as something for us all to do and connect. And so it's a real mixture, but I mean, I think talking to any artist, the balance between paying the bills and, you know, making your art is just a constant thing, but you kind of work it out. And I truly find my work with young people in education, in First Nations education, just so wonderful. It's such a, I mean, I just, you know, it really does help me with my art practice. So I kind of, I have to find that balance, but also being a mum, you know, so often staying up late at night and, you know, just doing things when you can. But I find the balance of having something as a regular income, just a little bit, doesn't have to be a lot, but helps me cope with, you know, and it helps me be able to clearly, you know, get in the frame of mind to make.
Yeah, I think the stress of precarity that a lot of artists face can be really, like, it can sometimes be so overwhelming that it's hard to relax and make as well. Like, so I think that's a really good point. And what's so interesting about this panel is there are so many, you know, ways to make it work. Like, Adam, you spoke about the flexibility that the work entails, but then you also spoke about the precarity of it, you know, and it's like that sort of balance of security and freedom that we all have in a way.
Yeah, but I think going back to the previous panel and that, you know, thing about having conversations with people, always kind of talking to people about what you're doing, and little things come up that you don't know what's going to come up, so that just trying to have those conversations and get to know people and just keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Jen, how about you? How do you sustain your practice?
I guess I do what you do, Annie. I like to have the security of having some kind of regular job. So I taught for a decade, secondary teaching for a decade. And then I've recently done a master's in arts therapy. So now I'm got a private practice doing that, and still a little bit of teaching because I'm just starting with the other. And then, yeah, I don't have too many art sales, so I do need to support myself in other ways. I try to do artist residencies when they're available. So I've done this one, and then have a really good look around for what's available. So I did a float residency on the Gippsland Lakes, and that was a free residency that I could do. And then Flinders Island had one as well. So I try to have a really good look around and see what's there, and then using, either my funds to get there, which is usually the case, or I might be lucky enough to get a stipend like here, so I could actually get some materials. Has that answered the question? I think it has.
Definitely, because it's true that often, you know, there's, you know, because what you've spoken to is the income of a job that's supporting your practice, but also that there's free opportunities out there, and the opportunities for making and space is also what sustains practice. It kind of what keeps you going or makes you feel like you can keep going and gives a context for making. So, yeah, definitely. Curious, all of you, do you, like, just thinking about a sort of professional practice space, do you promote your work? And if so, how? And if not, that's fine too, but just to maybe speak to everyone a little bit about your relationship with that or unrelationship.
I don't promote my work. I have a website, which I probably haven't looked at or done anything to for a while, but I do have that. And I guess I like it that way. So I like my practice to be for me, and then if I'm wanting to show it, then I can sort of seek out ways to do that. And I have occasionally tried out Instagram and I don't like it. I very quickly stop. And that goes for most of social media for me. I'm just, it's not for me.
Nothing in my life is very structured, actually. I kind of put my work through, like the spaces through Jarjuilma and Noldoran Exhibition and other spaces. And I have an Instagram page, but it's not for promoting my art as much as just putting random things on, and part of my, the things that I do, like, it does have my art in there, but it's not to promote my work. I think conversations, meeting people and relationships, I find that's the way that I get work, and the way that I learn about great programs like residencies and things that help kind of sustain that. But not kind of going out and promoting as such. I'm still kind of, finding my feet as an artist, many years into it. I think I probably always will be. But I just think making relationships, always talking to people, and I can be a bit shy sometimes, so that can be challenging, but that's kind of part of what you do. Not shy with the kids and with adults, it's funny, but that's kind of...
I think that's an amazing point. Yeah, and I think it kind of speaks to what Dane and some of the other people in the previous panel were speaking to, is that promotion, self-promotion, it feels yucky to say, but it doesn't have to be like, here's my marketing campaign and here's my pushy mailing list. And sometimes I have students that do stuff like that and you're like, whoa. But it's like, to be in your community, to be talking to people, to be engaged in other people's work is like, that's kind of a better form of promotion, if you want to call it that, or just management.
Yeah, that feels more me, I think. I have tried other ways, but I kind of didn't really, it just didn't fit as much. So, I think, there's different kind of artists out there, and a lot of what I do, I do it because I want to do it, and I want to share stories, and if I can make a little bit of money from that, that's great. But it's more about making the art. So, I think finding what fits for you is the most important. It's the same as making your art. You've got to do what is you, not what somebody else's works for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone's practice is different.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you put yourself out there is different. And actually that's what's great about you as an artist and an individual, is that you're, doing your own thing, and the world can see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Annie.
It's all right.
Noriko, how about you? How do you think about promotion or anything like that?
So I do have website and I do Instagram, but I think having exhibitions kind of it's promotion, because I started showing when after I finishing studying undergrad, I started organizing group show with my friends at artisan space. Then I'll be invited to other group show in a different artist space, and then I started showing doing solo show and as an artisan space in Melbourne. Then I'll get started inviting into more curators, invite me into other shows. So it's just keep showing my work I think that's the biggest promotion for me. But,
but also because I think the important thing about what you've said just there is not only keep showing, and some people might be like, well, how do I start showing? But it's you self-organised to begin with. It was not only you organising your own shows, but you organising shows with your friends. Again, that focus on community and all holding each other up. That's kind of the promotion in a way.
Yeah, because it's straight after undergrad, it's hard to get a solo show, even applying artisan spaces. So if we have friends. It's just easy. It was easier to get a show, so that's how. And then also they had to get an opportunity to show as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Adam, how about you? What sort of promotion do you engage with?
Well, sort of similar to Noriko, and Noriko and I were both on an artist-run board in Melbourne for a long time together. So there is that sort of networking, I guess. Not networking in necessarily the gross way, but it's like, you know, in the art world, it's like people are genuinely friends and become friends and then work together. So it's not like becoming friends to network. It's sort of like, you know, if you're in the same sort of location and working together on an artist-run board, you get to know each other. And like, we had a show in France together with the artist board, everyone on that artist board, and, you know, gallery exchanges. So you just build up networks like that. But yeah, no, I'm totally into self-promotion. Like just through
Say
like,
more.
just like, but again, it's like if you have a show, I'll just share it on Instagram. An institution, if I at a non-for-profit space or a gallery or a commercial gallery, and I am commercially represented, that they will promote my work, and so that's kind of like their role as well. So that it's not necessarily, but yeah, it's just a website and an Instagram that you update, or that I update, and then resharing anything through a gallery. But I think there's a way to go about it without being gross. Like, there's a way to be like, I've got a show, come. You know, even this talk, I'm like, we're doing a talk, come. And I think that's like part and parcel of it, and I think it's good.
Well, what you spoke about with the board, it is, again, like, you're like, oh, networking, yeah, but it's like, it's just building community and being present in the community, you know, it's less a self-promotion and more a like, if I'm present, other people know who I am, in a way.
And you're going to work with people, like on that artist, it was TCB that we're on the same board of. You sort of joined the board because you were sort of friends with people. You know, you could apply, but, you know, so you end up finding your own people within, or the people you get along with. It's not like you're just doing it all over in different scenes and different groups. Like, you're going to find your own people that you want to work with, or that want to work with you, and build up those sort of friendships and connections at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned your gallery, Lon, and how, can you speak a bit to how when you are commercially represented, the gallery takes on some of that promotion? Because I think that's quite an interesting thing that sometimes it might seem mysterious, but it's like a role that the gallery kind of does because they're working for you.
Yeah, they work. I mean, you know, they should promote because I mean, it's in their interest for commercial sales. And also, usually gallerists, you know, it changes on different galleries, but average it'd be a 50% commission that they take. And that's fine, but, you know, part of that's their role to promote, to reach out to collectors, to, you know, and that's essentially what the fee is, you know. So, yeah, I'm totally, you know, if someone's promoting it, and obviously they'll run things by you or a press release, and as long as you agree to it, and, you know, you're into the way they're doing it. And again, it's like working with a gallery that you like the way they do that, and they like the work you make. So it is hard to find that a lot of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's hard to find a gallery you fit, and for gallery, it's like this kind of two-way thing. But I think what you've kind of highlighted there is important for people, because sometimes it's like, oh, like you're commercially represented, you're just selling heaps of work, making heaps of money, and it's like both you and the gallery are struggling. You're selling and then half goes to the gallery, but that's not just like it's...
Well, they've got big overheads.
They've got the
as
rent,
well. You know,
they've got or the mortgage, like, and they're doing the advertising and like, so I think it's like to kind of get a sense of all those, you know, finances is good.
Yeah. Sure.
I guess linking to that, the next question for each of you is what supports you have. So is it like whether it's community, mentors, gallerists, networks, resources, like when you think about making and your life as an artist, what some of your main supports?
Yeah, I'm not too... I guess it is just friends mostly, you know, like friends and relationships that you can... People who understand what you're doing and how you can... and have similar experience. Like, you know, I feel like the biggest supports I have are friends in similar position. You know, I've got friends in lots of different fields, you know, professional fields or whatever, but the ones that you can actually talk to about creative practice and the struggles within that are really beneficial. Yeah, that would be my main thing, is like that connection.
How about you, Noriko?
Yeah, I think the same, like friends, and you become friendly with the people work with, like creators and like, you know, educational programmers. So like then like they would invite me back again for next show or next program. So just be nice to people, I guess.
The quote of the day.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
How about you, Annie?
Yes, friends and community. So I've got some beautiful aunties in this room that are huge supports to me, and my family, and yeah, having artist friends in creative work is really helpful, because you talk to other people about it and they kind of look at you and go, "What are you talking about?" So yeah, just being able to kind of debrief and vent and celebrate the wins and all of that. Yeah, my children, you know, if I'm having a bit of trouble and they're there, it's a wonderful kind of grounding, you know, aspect to my life. It's a struggle being a parent and creating, but they're definitely a huge support. So yeah, there's a lot that goes in. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's like fantastic support networks, you know, in many ways. And how about you, Jen?
Yeah, I think it will be the same. So just friends, community, colleagues, and people, in like-minded fields. Studio visits to friends' places is always really, a good way to show them support, but also it feeds your own practice as well. And when you spoke about your kids then, I thought they're really supportive, but they're really honest, which is great.
Yeah, it's kind of quite interesting, because it's like been this panel around sustaining practice and thinking about funding practice, but ultimately what sustains practices is like family and community and friendship, you know, like money, sure, but like those are so much more integral. And so perhaps my last question for each of you before we have some questions from the audience is, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago? I don't mind who goes first. Like, we don't have to. Yeah.
Okay. 10 years ago. Just keep at it. Just keep talking to people, and you know, you're going to go through the good and the bad, and you're going to put work out there that's wonderful. You're going to put work out there that you might have to explain. You know, you're going to have successes and losses and all of those things, but just kind of keep going and keep talking to people. And I don't know, I think being a creative person, it's in your blood. You do it. You don't really have a choice, I don't think. I mean, I don't, but yeah, just keep going, and you might have times where you don't make, and that's okay. You don't make any money, or you don't make, you know, you're not making, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're not an artist. Like, I mean, the little young people telling me they're not an artist, I'm like, yes, you know, we all are. So yeah, just don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Jen?
Yeah, I think mine to myself would be not to rush, and that it's okay, just slow down. And having large periods where I'm not making anything that's okay, because that, like I think someone was saying before, there's always ideas going around in your head, and when the time's right, you'll get it down on paper or whatever it is you're doing. Yeah, so don't rush, and yeah, and you'll get back to it when you need to.
My advice to me 10 years ago would be like, you can say no. Because like, I used to just like 10 years ago, I would just say yes to every single opportunities. And also like being an artist, like emerging artist, you have to do a lot of favors. Like, oh, could you just do like gallery sit this show? Or like, oh, could you give artist talk of these people, like collectors? Then you don't get paid. And some opportunity, some like exhibition or something like I'm too busy or like don't feel comfortable, but I said yes to everything, and I'm so busy. And like look back, like some of like the shows like I felt like strong yes, kind of feel like kind of led to me something, but something that I felt like wasn't sure, like I didn't go anywhere, like and feel like just made myself busy. So like you know what's best for your practice. So if you're not comfortable or not happy to do, you could just say no.
I guess sort of just what everyone said, really. I think the main thing for me would be like, and you know, it's still something I need to work on now, not just 10 years ago, but getting, you know, a rejection for something and not taking it so, you know, not making it be like, oh, what's the point of this? I'm just gonna quit, and then not feel depressed for like 6 months or something, because I've, you know, now sat on quite a few different exhibition selection panels and things, and there's so many great shows that don't get picked. And it's not a reflection on the work, it's not a reflection on the artist practice, it's a reflection on like state funding and space. So, you know, you might be on a gallery board and as a guest sort of person who looks at proposals and things, there might be 4 spots and there's like 300 applicants, and maybe 150 of those shows would be great. And then it comes down to, you know, oh, we've got 1 painting show, we need 1 photography show, we need 1 sculpture show, we need 1 group show with people from interstate. You know, that's how those shows get picked. And it doesn't mean that if you don't get it, it's a reflection on you. So just like observing it from the other side. But even still, you know, I'll apply for something if I don't get it, like a residency or something. It'll still knock me out for like, you know, months. But just trying to remember that you've sat on the other side and looked at it's not something that you should take that personally, really. But always ask for feedback and go from there. Yeah.
Wow, thanks everyone. I feel this is advice. It feels quite real for me as well. Like I'm like, yeah, the rejections are awful, even after 15 years of experiencing them or something, you know. And also like the point of sometimes you have long stretches of not making, and that is okay. Like I think that there can be a guilt that artists have, and one of my friends recently said that he at some point realised, oh, I'm an artist and I'll always be an artist. That won't change, you know. So I think that's all like really, really good advice for everyone. So maybe we can open up for some questions, more advice. Yes, Amy.
I'm wondering if you've ever had an opportunity open up for you, maybe from left field, so you've ended up doing something in a way that you hadn't anticipated or worked towards, that has been really amazing or fulfilling. I'd love to know what it was and how it came about. Maybe working with someone you hadn't anticipated or in a...
Collaborations are always interesting and wonderful and challenging, and but really good to do, because you get to know yourself more as an artist. and work out what you like and what you don't like, and also in collaboration you can come up with things that you would never come up with on your own. So I think, you know, I've worked in a couple of collaborations where it's been amazing and really challenging, but it's kind of good to get out of your own head for a little bit. I won't go into the specifics of them, but I think, you know, sometimes they are out of left field, like a collaboration will come along that you can't even imagine what it's going to be, and then, you know, you've got to kind of work to get it. Or even if it's a collaboration where you're actually working on your own work, you've got to pull something out about a theme that maybe you hadn't thought about. But I'd encourage it, but look after yourself through it. So trust your gut, and, you know, because they can be challenging, but helpful too. Yeah, I think.
Maybe for me, like postnatal depression, like something you experience in life that you never thought, like, and having a newborn baby, no sleep, and like I never felt myself. And that kind of experience, like also I was getting flashback of like traumatic birth, and that kind of experience actually made a work about that. So that kind of something that I never thought is in a life is actually good for my practice. Yeah.
Actually similar to Noriko, but not childbirth. It would be like grief, like unexpected grief, like sudden loss of a family member, or you know, grief about other things, like you know, difficult sibling relationships or something like that. That then is something that could really hamper your practice as well, because you just, you know, everything else seems a bit irrelevant. You know, like looking at some floral fabric on a wall seems pretty stupid when you're like dealing with something quite heavy, but then actually how that grief then becomes part of your practice and like the focus of it. So something that can be seen as like an initial setback, and just like taking time to sit with it and see how you then react to it in a sort of creative way. So I think that's, yeah, how creative pursuits have come about unexpectedly through different life experiences for me, anyway.
I did think of one, or a few. When I was teaching, I'd often get the opportunity to go on different excursions or camps. I've been to Tasmania a couple of times, and I've done workshops with artists doing that. And also when I was doing my masters at La Trobe, we had some really fantastic workshops that I found out about and was able to join, and they have really changed my practice, because it opened my eyes up to things that I had not even thought about. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. This has been just the best conversation to sit and listen to. And I love these themes of elders, community, friendship, transformation that are coming up. And Noriko and Adam, I wanted to ask you about your recent experience of co-curating an exhibition in Castlemaine, which was, you know, I think when you were speaking about, Noriko, promotion, being through exhibitions, there is a sense that might be just for early career artists, but you're both, you know, established now, and this was still something that you... the self-promotion's working. Your experience in putting that show together just recently.
Maybe it was more for fun, like, because we had wanted to have a fun. Yeah. It was a fun show for us, and we never had a show in Castlemaine, so... Yeah.
That was with there was 4 of us in it, and we're all Castlemaine based, and that was a way to kind of try and build our own community, because we are sort of recent arrivals to Castlemaine, or like we've both been there about 3 years, of trying to build build a bit more of a community and like have an event where different people that we, you know, sort of know and don't know come, and then to try and generate a network there, but also to, you know, show people what we do there. You know, people would, because it's an artist-run space called Caspar in Castlemaine, and you know, there'd be regular visitors to that space who don't know our practice because we are relatively new to that town, as a way to just show what we're doing and a way just to, you know, yeah. So that was, I think, a really good experience for us, and yeah, just showcasing what we're doing and trying to meet new people in the local area. So that's, yeah.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any other questions, either for the panel as a whole or for any individual artists?
Hi again. It's really great to see two sculptors on a panel of artists. Being a sculptor myself, that speaks to me, and two of them's amazing. Where do you show your work? Where have you found most receptive to 3 dimensions?
I've been mainly showing Melbourne, and I have a coming up show at Neon Park next week. It's like a 2-person show, and yeah, I've been showing like artisan space or commercial gallery in Melbourne, mainly in Victoria. I do occasionally outside of Victoria or overseas, but since I used to have like overseas show with my friends. Sometimes go there or like but then since I have a child, I just do what I can do, so kind of a bit closer to me.
Yeah, I mean, sculpture can be a little bit trickier in terms of like a commercial realm as well, because, I mean, obviously not for everyone, but even if I buy an artwork, I'm buying a painting to put on a wall, because, you know, a sculpture in the middle of the lounge room is like quite inconvenient. But so it does, yeah, pose challenges. But I also think it can, with showing sculpture that's heavy, like both of us make, is actually a huge cost barrier to showing. Even with commercial galleries, shipping, freight. I used to show in Sydney. I used to be represented in Sydney, but I'd have to drive up all my work. So all my work had to fit in the car. I had to be able to carry everything individually. It sort of limits your practice. So I guess it's, yeah, I don't know, with bigger funding, you could do more ambitious things, but I'm not quite at that point myself necessarily.
Yeah, I think how to move my sculptural work is the biggest question for me too. So, like, it would cost me, even Castlemaine to Melbourne would cost me $1,200 one way, because I need a truck is kind of lift in a pallet jack, and also I used to have a bigger work. It's like kind of limestone work. It used to be kind of 1 ton, and I need a higher forklift, and that would cost, just even moving inside of Melbourne cost me $1,000. So that's a cost that sculpture have to
to wear.
To wear.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Just tell you about it.
I've got a forklift and a pallet jack.
Oh, good to know. Great. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Great. Well, yeah. We'll hit you up. Yeah.
Any other questions from people? Amazing. Thank you all so much. That's kind of perfect time for wrapping up, and we're going to head to the lunch across the road. Just so you all know, the exhibition has now been turned on, so some of the sound and audiovisual works that weren't on earlier in the day are now on if you want to enjoy. There's a wonderful 4-channel sound work in the courtyard, and a